I want to give you a very warm welcome this evening, this late afternoon in the House of the EU. It's nice and warm in here. It's a packed room for the Citizens Dialogue. My name is Yuri Kobakis. I'm head of the representation of the European Commission here in Luxembourg, and I will also be moderating our exchange this evening. I'm happy we have such a nice turnout of young people here tonight. Thank you so much, and please feel very welcome here in the House of the EU. Of course, tonight we are very honored to have the Vice President of the European Commission with us, Vice President Šuica. Really, it's an honor because we have many citizens' dialogues. Sometimes there are 500 people, sometimes 400, sometimes 300. But I think for us, it's really nice to have in a more intimate setting here where it's possible to really be able to exchange with you. So the fact that you're here is really great. It already shows that you have an engagement to communicate and to discuss about the future of Europe. I think Europe is a little bit like a construction that you can see around the House of the EU here in the street. It's a big construction site, and maybe Europe is a little bit the same. Allow me to say a few words to you to introduce the Vice President of the European Commission. She was for many years member of the European Parliament. She was for many years a member of the Croatian Parliament. She was mayor of Dubrovnik, the first female mayor of Dubrovnik. How many of you have perhaps been to Croatia? Raise your hand. Oh, see, quite a few people. Yes. How many of you have been to Dubrovnik? You see, Vice President, not bad, huh? I also want to say, and I think this might interest you, that Vice President started her career as a teacher. So she became also then director of a high school in Dubrovnik. So you see where some careers as teachers can also leave. I want to say 2 words about the responsibilities of the Vice President in the European Commission. So she is responsible for a portfolio that didn't exist before. Democracy and demography. She will be talking to you about the Conference on the Future of Europe, which is the part really of democracy, and that's also what we just want to discuss tonight. But she has another portfolio, which is demography. I think this is extremely important. Also, we have to see where we invest in the future for infrastructure. What are we going to do with urban areas and areas that are more remote? There's also the angle aging. Maybe you are very young and you think aging is really that's something for the old, but in fact you are directly affected by what's happening with the social security systems, for example. So Vice President is also in charge of the coordination of what the Commission is planning to do on a child strategy. This is the Children Guarantee, for example, is a dossier that the Luxembourg Commissioner Nicolas Schmit will also be dealing more specifically with. So you see a very wide portfolio, many interesting things to discuss tonight with the Vice President. Before I give her the floor to say a few introductory remarks, I want to just point out to you, around you, you have pictures, faces of the new Commission members. Most of these pictures were taken on the 13th of January when the whole College of Commissioners was in Luxembourg, where they swore at the European Court of Justice that they would respect the treaties and that they would respect also the Fundamental Rights Charter of the EU. I think this is extremely important because they really swore at the Court of Justice that they would not take instructions from any member state, from any other bodies. And so these are the faces really of the people in the Commission that are working in the interest of the citizens without taking instructions from government. I think this is very important. A second point I'd like to make is on Sunday was International Women's Day. This is the first commission led by a woman, Ursula von der Leyen. Her picture is also up there. Gender parity, gender balance, gender equality is something that's extremely important to this commission, and the president tried to have a gender balanced commission in place. She almost succeeded, almost. but the vice president is then one of the women on this team. Not only commissioner, but also vice president. So tonight we want to have a very interactive exchange with you. We want to use Slido rather than raising hands. So we invite you to participate by also raising questions. You can type in questions on the Slido app. And we invite you to answer some of the polling questions that we will be asking you. And maybe just to test this, I would invite you to take out your phones. And we will ask you just to test, but also to get to know you better, two very simple questions. So can you take out your phones and tell us which country you are from? Very easy. We only have 9 people helping us out here, so please log in and tell us where you are from so that the vice president also has an idea what audience she is talking to. We are hesitant to share the Wi-Fi password tonight because it might interact with other machinery here now, so sorry. So you can see we have a very interesting vice president. We have a quite a nice mix of people in the room here. Interesting. Luxembourg, of course, we are in Luxembourg, but you see how multicultural really Luxembourg is and how multicultural your audience is. Bavaria, yeah, that's a country, good. India, Iran, Belgium, Italy, Croatia, Romania, Greece. Vice President, you see you have a very multicultural, multi-national crowd here. Can we do the second test before I pass the word to you? How old are you? Some are not sure how old they are. That's moving up and down. So you see we have about 30% between 13 and 17, 26% under 21, and another almost third between 22 and 26. Yep, nice mix. Thank you very much. So that was a Slido test. Like I said, we want this to be interactive. We will be having other polling questions in the course of our exchange. That was the test. But like I said, please also use this opportunity during the course of the evening to ask your questions via Slido. So, Vice President, I would like to give you the floor to say a few introductory words and tell us why it was so important for you also to be able to exchange tonight with a nice young crowd here in Luxembourg. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good evening. Good evening to everybody, and I'm really happy when I can see so many young people in one room and interested in work of us politicians, interested in democracy and maybe demography too. So I came over here to visit your state, visit your town, and talk to Court of Auditors, and then to your Prime Minister, to your Foreign Minister, to your Parliament, and you know the German proverb, Zucker kommt zuletzt. So, 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 so I like this. I feel like I'm in a classroom again. Bigger classroom, but similar to it. So, as our moderator told us, I would like to talk to you about the conference on the future of Europe. When we say conference, that doesn't mean conference. I mean, the title might be a little bit misleading because some of people think it will be one conference and that's it. So it's a series of conferences, different events, roundtables, city hall debates, really different events which will form this conference, which will last for 2 years. Our goal is to launch the conference on 9th of May, which is Day of Europe, and now I know that it's national holiday here in Luxembourg too. And after launching this on 9th of May, we will continue with this, and we hope to land somewhere in 2 years' time during French presidency. As you might know, now there is Croatian presidency, so we are Croatia is chairing Council of the European Union, and we think that the launch could be on 9th of May from one Croatian city, which is coincidentally enough my hometown Dubrovnik. And at the same time, you can launch the conference in each and every member state. So just to spread the idea and to have it launched all over European Union. This is the idea. This is about techniques. Ursula von der Leyen, who is our new president of the Commission, wants us not to go only to capitals, but also to go to region, to go to rural areas, to go to remote regions, go to peripheria, go out of metropolitan areas, in order to try to talk and meet each and every citizen, regardless if it's young, if he or she is young or old, regardless of their position towards European Union, either Eurosceptics or populists or those who are in favor of European Union, just to talk to and to listen to people, to see what are their ideas, what are their hopes. You know that last year we had the elections for European Parliament, it was in May last year, and there was more than 50% of turnout in these elections. And it was the highest turnout in last 20 years. And then we realized that people wanted to tell us something. They want to have their say. But if they have their say only once in 4 years, only once in 5 years, we think it's not enough. This is the reason why we want to have citizens with us all the time. And there is evident, if I may say, problem and gap between us politicians and citizens. There is a gap, and we want to somehow bridge this gap. We want to abolish this gap. We want to talk to citizens to see what are their problems, what are their concerns, what are their fears, what are their new ideas, maybe new proposals. And then in 2 years' time, we'll collect all this, and then we will translate these proposals into concrete politics. So this is the idea how we think we'll do this conference on the future of Europe. Of course, how are we going to collect this? It will be established a multilingual digital platform, and we will try to have it online. The idea, of course, is to meet in similar meetings as we meet tonight, but as you know, Corona came, and we are not sure that we will be able to do this all on offline platform. So online for us will be one of the most important tools, and I'm not sure that the launch on 9th of May will be done in front of a big audience. If not, we are sure that we want to launch it on virtual way, which means we will launch it online and we will start the conference, because we as Commission, today is 101st day of this Commission, and we would like to deliver according to our promises. So what is the conference about? About the future of Europe. What are we going to debate? whatever citizens thinks is important for them. It won't be the topic and one size fits all. Wherever we go, there are different ideas, different problems. Europe is so diverse, from Estonia, Greece, Ireland, Portugal, Luxembourg. So we want to listen to citizens and to see what are their key problems. Of course, we would try to have debates alongside our political priorities. We have 6 priorities of European Commission, but I don't want to bother you, and also priorities of European Council. But if some new topic crops up, why don't we talk about this? I'm sure that coronavirus will be one of topics, but 100 days ago, I wouldn't imagine that this could be a topic, you know. So things, you cannot foresee everything. Things are developing in different, I still think that this is a dream. I couldn't believe that in 21st century we would be faced with such a challenge without knowing how to control it. But okay, I don't want to bother you tonight with this, but this is a real problem at the moment. So thank you for coming despite of this challenge, which is among all of us, as you know. So this conference will be especially dedicated to youth, to young people, even to children, because who is going to live in this future? Not us, maybe us for some time, but future it will be shaped for you. So we want you to take part into this conference. We want you to debate. We want you to talk to us. Even one agora, which is envisaged by European Parliament, will be dedicated only to youth. But I don't think that other panels will be among adults, because you have to be present in each and every topic, because you have to be included. Regarding children, which you mentioned that I'm in charge together with Nicola Schmidt, who is my dear colleague from Luxembourg, children should be also involved, because we think that we have to practice democracy immediately, as early as possible. So when I was mayor of Dubrovnik, which you mentioned, we had a children city council. We had a child as mayor of the city. Everything was on this level, and we got a label Dubrovnik city, a friend of children. You know, it was a label, and you have many cities which have this label. So I think you have to be included in democratic processes as soon as possible, and this is a good idea tonight here to hear from you. What do you think? What do you expect from us? And I may maybe preach longer, but maybe it's better to have interactive debate and to listen to you and to try to answer, if I can, to answer to your questions.
Thank you very much, Vice President. Well, it's your chance now to also via Slido send in some questions, but I think we had a first question up there. What does Europe mean to you? I'm not sure all of you have contributed to that. There we go. So we have 20 responses. Maybe some of you who didn't say anything now, can they still log in? Please do tell us what Europe does mean to you. You find a word that describes it. I see that solidarity is really the #1 key word. I think really, if we had more solidarity in Europe, perhaps Vice President, lots of problems would be solved in an easier fashion, and lots of challenges that we face today perhaps would be dealt with more easily. We have peace, freedom, diversity, unity. Vice President, how do you react to some of these key words?
I think today solidarity is the basic word. So thank you for this reply, because without solidarity, it's one of founding principles of European Union. So without solidarity, there is no Europe. And I think it is very, very important. And thank you for recognizing that solidarity is the most important, especially nowadays where we are fighting all these problems with today with the health, and yesterday with migrations, with unaccompanied children. And I think without having solidarity, we wouldn't be able to stay together. So I think it's the basic principle of European Union, and I would like to have more solidarity all over Europe. It is not the case everywhere, I must tell you. Luxembourg is a bright example of that, but not each and every state understands what is solidarity, and we have to work on it, and we have to work with politicians, with citizens, we have to communicate. Maybe us politicians, we have to communicate better in order to make citizens aware what solidarity means if we want to stay together. You know, we want to be competitive enough, we want to be important enough, we want to be leaders in the world. How can we be leaders if we cannot find common ground on some very important issues? So you have a rising markets, not only markets, but and countries on Far East. You have United States of America. So how can Europe be a leader if we don't agree on some common principles? So thank you for this answer.
Somebody said lost. I don't know if somebody would dare to make a comment on that. Why do you think Europe is lost? Because I think we see here a very strong expression of many very positive words that we are striving really to fulfill on a European level. If Europe is lost, what would be the reason and why? Please?
Yes, someone wants to.
Maybe you can take the microphone. Somebody will give you the microphone. We want to hear you.
I also put very positive things, just to come up and find solutions together, for example, with the migration crisis. In that sense that on a business level or whatever, you often have solutions, but even if we talk about solidarity, they're coming up with something common. It feels lost. It feels that even if you look at policy papers, it's very vague, it's not concrete. So lost can be just interpreted in a very different way, or different ways, but yeah.
I think policy papers are concrete, if I may oppose you, but the implementation is not concrete, and this might be a problem. Some states agree, some states don't agree, and this is a problem. So this is the reason why we have to communicate better to understand what is going. Who can be against those unaccompanied children on Lesbos Island today? Of course, some of these kids are used as victims, or they are used as victims of traffickers. Some of them are used as pressure to politicians to reach their goal to come to Europe. But regardless of this, we know that it might be the case. But how can you look at these small kids without having empathy and without being able to accept them in your country, in your town, in your city? So this is something which should be better understood, and I'm not very happy with some of politicians and member states who don't want to understand what's going on. Okay, I mean, if you say it's lost, it's not lost. It is matter of implementation, according to my opinion.
I think the European Commission is also in the role of making the proposals. Afterwards, in the process, you have member states together with the European Parliament who decide on policy, and then, as the Vice President said, then you need to implement what may or may not have been what may have been decided. So one way, of course, for all of us to influence is to influence via elections in member states. Maybe some of you participated in the national elections, or some of you participated in the last European elections, or you will at least in the next ones. Perhaps in terms of talking a little bit about how we participate in our democracy, before talking about maybe some more of the politics, would you like to answer this question? How do you participate in our democracy today? I give you a few seconds to type in your answer. can think about it. I think you can click more than one, or yes, you might be able to click more than one, because you might participate in more than one way. Either you're voting, you might be a member of a political party, you might be a member of a non-political association, you're talking with friends and family about politics, perhaps that's also one way. Participating via social media, or maybe you were participating in Fridays for Future. Of course, there are many other ways to say what you think, but go ahead and type in. Well, we're already almost at 60. Okay. Vice President, are you surprised with this result? 90% participate by talking with friends and family?
I'm not surprised, because I know who is the audience, and some of them cannot vote at all because they are 13 to 17. There was a majority of them 13 to 17. So I think it's 18 years age here for vote, not 16 in Luxembourg. 18, okay, because there are some countries where you can vote with 16. So I'm not surprised. I'm really positively surprised that you talk with your friends and family about this, that you are that you have interest in this. Of course, social media is also relatively high because of your using social media, being young. Some of you vote, and some of you take to the streets. I don't know if you take to the streets, which means that you participate in protests or in different...
Protests can be positive or can be for something,
okay.
can be against something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So each of these examples is positively, and it contributes to our democracy. So I'm really positively surprised. So talking with friends and family is very, very interesting, especially if you talk with friends. So friends cannot, maybe family can influence you, but friends can always, you can always have different views, and it's fine.
Can I take now on a subject that you would like to discuss, a question from you, either via Slido or by raising your hand? We have microphones here, so what you would like to discuss, make a comment, or ask Vice President Šuica a question? Yes, we have a microphone here, second row in the middle. Thank you.
Thank you.
So before you take the floor, so we have some questions up there. You can ask them anonymously, and if you want to support one of the questions, you can click on them. And the questions, obviously, that will have the most support are the ones that I will then refer to. Please.
So I am Mathilde from the lycée in Mäerz, and my question is actually also up there. So the first one. So with the ever-occurring breaches of the rule of law in countries such as Poland, Hungary, or even now Malta, what do you believe are the steps that should be taken by the European Union in order to prevent this core essential of democracy?
Okay, thank you for this question. This is a very important question. And as you know, all of us stick to our common values, and this is one of the basic, as I said, first one, solidarity, but also rule of law, very important. But at the same time, you know, I'm representing Commission here, and Commission is very active in this, and Commission is very active in monitoring the processes in these two. You mentioned Poland. You mentioned Poland, yes. But as you know, there are three institutions: Parliament, Commission, and Council. Once you come to Council, there is, according to treaty, there is you have to vote there unanimously, which means if each and every country doesn't agree, or they don't agree, that means that you cannot reach the final goal. So if I may say, qualified majority vote would be better if possible, but at this moment we have unanimity, and this is where the things are stuck. So, but Commission is monitoring on a regular basis, and we are doing our task. But you have three institutions, so we have to adhere to treaty, Lisbon Treaty. You know.
Thank you. We have another question concerning enlargement. You come from Croatia, like you said. This is the latest member state to join the EU. Do you believe that in the maybe near future, it's not written in the question, there will be new members joining?
You know what, we are now working hard on 2 countries, North Macedonia and Albania, and we are looking forward to next council, which will be held in March, and we are looking forward to Zagreb summit on high-level conference on the Western Balkans future. And you know what, even North Macedonia, they even changed their name in order to have this agreement with Greece, which means they did a lot, and we have to help them to join the Union. So I'm looking forward to these 2 countries which will be, I think, the first in the row. But regardless of these 2 countries, we need whole Southeast Europe, or so-called Western Balkans, to become part of Union, because we have a big hole within the European Union. You have Greece, Romania, Bulgaria, Croatia, and then you have Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, Serbia, and Macedonia and Albania within this. So it's not only because we want them to have them with us, but because of security reasons and because of many other reasons, and also economic reasons. So I think it will be important for them to fulfill their criteria, to stick to the rule of law, of course, and to stick to all other principles, and to fulfill their obligations and their homework. And there is no reason not to accept them in the European Union.
Thank you. We have very nice questions up here. Vice President, you mentioned that in the Conference for the Future of Europe, which is not one conference, but which is a process that will take place over 2 years, you mentioned a multilingual platform that will be created. Maybe we cannot, with the coronavirus spreading, have so many meetings like this perhaps in the future, or bigger manifestations. So maybe some of these consultations will be online, but we have a question up there for people who aren't so interested or attracted to politics. How will we make them participate? So can we make Europe, or participating in the discussion on the future of Europe, a bit sexier?
Yes, but we, you know, it's when we say politics, they are not, maybe some of people are not interested to take part in politics, but they are interested in their future, in their daily lives. So politics is everything. So I think if the topics are interesting, and if we have some prominent also personalities who has nothing to do with politics, we can do it with sportsmen, some singers, and they can also take part in these debates. And I think we can make different arrangements, but it has to do with the people who will organize this. I said 27 of us, members of European Commission, we can go around, but there is 1 million elected representatives all over European Union. So if they start this conference all over Europe, and they will envisage and they will try to attract all people to their fora, to their roundtables, to their events.
But of these 1 million, you also elected politicians that you just mentioned, you also have a large part that might be very anti-European.
Of course, this is the reason why we said we will approach each and every citizen, and what is the reason for their anti-Europeanism. So we will try to see what is the problem, and we can maybe adjust our politics if they are wrong. I can't say that they are wrong, but let's see what is their opinion. We have to listen to each and every citizen. What is the reason for their populism? What is the reason for that? Because they listen to some superficial politicians, to some superficial news. They are sometimes you have misinformation. You have these digital platforms which are fine. We are praising them, but at the same time you can misuse these digitals in order to misinform citizens. So we have to think about fake news, about different situations. So we have to have enough arguments to talk to those who are anti-European.
So we have some very nice questions up here, but we also want to hear your voice once in a while, and not only Vice President and my own. So if you would like to ask a question, get the microphone, please raise your hand, because we do also want to hear your voices and not only have your excellent questions up here. Here we have one question in the front, second row at the end.
I'm a student from Lycée Mäerz, and my questions is up there. So how do you envisage the future of the EU without the UK after the Brexit?
You know, we were 500 million, now we are 446 million inhabitants, and 27 countries are now eager to stay together, because we cannot solve big issues without staying together. You can't solve terrorism, you can't solve migrations, you can't solve trafficking of people, you cannot solve security issues without staying together. So for smaller issues, of course, you can use subsidiarity principle and member states. So UK, I don't want to comment on UK. I mean, if you want my personal opinion, I think it was a mistake, but okay, let's see how it will evolve later on, but we will stay together. And the problem is now MFF, as you know, multi-annual financial framework, which is a budget for next 7 years, envelope for next 7 years. It is very, very hard now to negotiate, because we lack this 12 billion euro, not pounds. And we have to fill in this gap in order to somehow accommodate all our different policies, because you know that we are now modernizing our budget. We have to implement our Green Deal policy. We have to implement all new policies with less money. So it is a big challenge to us, but we think we are now even more coherent.
Thank you. Before going on to some more questions, I would like to have one more polling question up here. How do you feel represented on by the EU on a scale of 1 to 5? How do you feel represented? 1 is you don't feel represented. 5, you feel very represented, and everything in between. Maybe take a few seconds to think about that. Of course, we realize some of you haven't voted, and some of you may have voted, but the result of what you voted may not have been what you expected, or what the political parties that you might be supporting. But in general, let's get your feeling on this, so we can have the Vice President react. Okay, that's not so bad. Those the two extremes are about on the same level. 7% who feel very well represented, or not at all. So the majority is really in category 3, and then 4. Vice President, you have been to citizens' dialogues in other countries. Maybe similar questions have been asked. How do you compare this to?
Depends on the country. Depends on the country. Some were very well, some were not. But you know, representation means elected MEPs for you. So far as I know, Luxembourg has 6, and I almost know almost all of them, and they are very good politicians and very good representatives of your country. So maybe, and you have also a commissioner, previous former minister, now commissioner in charge, and you had the former president of commission. So I think Luxembourg is very, very well, even excellently represented in European institutions. So being so small country and having a president of commission for 5 years, I think this was really a good result for your very important but small country, you know.
So with the conference on the future of Europe, it will be one way to motivate people of all ages more to also get engaged. So there's a big outreach exercise that really we need to do, but not only, of course, the institutions. We need member states also to be involved in this engagement?
As I said, not only member states, not only national parliaments, not only municipalities, but also NGOs, which means civil society. We want civil society to be on board, because in civil society you have representatives of citizens, so they must be very important stakeholder of this conference.
Before we go back to, I see that the migration crisis, of course, is all over the newspapers. It's a problem we have been dealing with, and it has many different facets. I think it's a very complicated topic to discuss. But Vice President, would you like to address the question: how do you evaluate the EU's position concerning refugees and regular, irregular migration?
When we talk about migrations in 2015 and nowadays, it's different situation. So nowadays Europe is firm because the situation is different. The different reasons for this migration flow, there are different reasons. I don't want to now to enter into foreign policy and the relations of European Union with Turkey, but I think at this point, all 27 member states had the same opinion. So we are firm to take care about our external border. All of us want to help Greece, because we know that one country cannot solve the problem themselves. You know that 350 million euros was already released by Commission, and another 350 million euros will be released after annexing our budget, which is solid sum of money to help Frontex and all other facilities in Greece. And when we talk about legal migrations, then we are just about to offer and adopt a new asylum pact, which will be done by my dear colleague Skinas, who is also Vice President of Commission, and Commissioner Johansson. So they are in charge of migrations and home affairs. So we are looking forward to new asylum pact, and the legal migrations are fine. Illegal migrations are not fine, and there will be a return process of those who came illegally. We know that there is difference between migrants and refugees. You know, refugees are fleeing from wars, conflicts, and floods and droughts, and migrants, they are trying to reach European soil in order to improve their economic and their living standard, which is not always the case. So the key problem is how to manage migration. So there is a term, managing migrations nowadays will be very important. If we manage well, we can, I think, we can do a good thing for European Union.
Would somebody like to comment on the migration topic in response to the Vice President's intervention? Because I think it's a topic that is we're all following, I think, quite closely. We all have our opinions on it. It's easy to, of course, blame EU is not doing something or not doing enough. Of course, the situation is very complicated, but would somebody like to support to that question, like to say something more on that topic? Go ahead.
Are there any concrete action plans or in general just plans from the Commission for next steps? Because now it's, well, we have the crisis, even I don't like the word, which is now a couple of years ago, but still, I mean, you have news that there are thousands of people dying. You have now in Greece that you have camps which are just not built for that many people. And I mean, the EU sends funds, but do you have concrete action plans in case that you have countries who do not want to accept refugees?
Okay, first, as I told you, a new asylum pact is on its way. This is a very important document which will be adopted soon. But I said that I don't want to enter foreign policy, but now I have to tell you what is Turkey doing at this moment. You know, you know that these migrants, the majority of these migrants are not coming from Syria at the moment. So these people were have been there for 3-4 years in Turkey, and there was a pact signed in 2016 between European Union and Turkey on 6 billion euros. And the first tranche of 3 billion euros was already sent to Turkey, but not to Turkey government, but to different NGOs, to different projects, to different civil organizations, to different, not to central government budget. And now another part of this pact should be implemented, but Turkish authorities and their president are not very happy with the speed of that. So now there was an agreement when Erdogan visited the day before yesterday European Commission and European Council. There was an agreement that a group of experts will see what happened with this 3 billion euros up to now, what will happen with next 3 billion euros, because the money was aimed to build shelters, hospitals, facilities, schools to those kids in order to keep those migrants on their own Turkish soil, which we are not sure if it's implemented or not. So there are plans, they are now under examination and looking forward to it. But the problem is using migrants, poor people, especially poor kids, to put pressure on European Union, which is completely false policy, and European Union would defend this pressure. We understand humanitarian situation. I told you about the unaccompanied kids, everything fine. We have to show our solidarity, but at the same time we don't want to anyone to make pressure at us in European Union.
Thank you. We have a question here. Can we have the microphone? Thank you.
Like you said, Europe is investing massive amounts of money into Turkey, into Libya, or into those countries who are at the borders of Europe, and also into Frontex. But I think that the problem is not that the people come to Europe, but the problem is that they have to leave their countries. So I think it's wrong to only invest and only talk about Frontex and building shelters at the border states, but we have to think of more sustainable approaches to tackle the problem at its roots
Yeah.
and at the core.
Thank you. You are right. When saying so, having said this, you are completely right, and we have to solve problems on the roots, of course, in the regions. 2 weeks ago, whole commission as a whole visited Addis Ababa and Ethiopia, and we had African Union, European Union college-to-college meeting in order to try to continue our dialogue and to see how can we help Africa to be more developed, to be better educated, and this was very, very, very interesting summit between two of us, European Union and African Union, and we know that we have to solve the problem. So there is a new European-African partnership in order to have it. But now, when we are here, we have to solve the problems which already exist. But be sure that we are trying to help them by investing in their education, in their health systems, in having them in Europe in order to learn some new skills. And be sure that I was talking to many of them while visiting at Addis Ababa. Everybody would like to live at home, you know, if you have conditions and if you have a proper living standard. If not, then you are fleeing from these zones.
On the migration, is anybody else who would like to intervene? I know this is a topic that is also very important for you. No? Okay, then we move on to other very interesting topics. Vice President, you see you're also in charge of future discussions on demography. We have a question, how can you motivate young people to stay and live in rural areas?
As I said, the part of my portfolio is demographic change, and long-term strategy for rural areas, whatever it means, rural or small or regional areas. So people, young people, tend to move from villages, from smaller cities towards urban areas. And this is the case within member states, and also there is a trend of moving from eastern part of Europe to western and from southern to northern. So there is a tendency of movement. At the same time, you know that there are 4 freedoms. One of freedoms is freedom of mobility, and especially those countries who used to live under one-party system with no democracy, there was a big wish to move freely, you know, to work without having to have a working permit, working license, and so on. And this is what's going on in Europe. So it's one of our 4 freedoms, freedom of movement. At the same time, they leave their countries, they leave their villages, their towns, and there are many depopulated areas within the member states, but not only in Eastern Europe. It's also the case in Spain, also in some places in France. And people just like to move. They are moving because they want to have better schooling system, better university, better living standard. They move for different reasons, learning new skills. You know, there is Erasmus program, there are Horizon programs, there are many programs which make people move. So how are we going to tackle this? We'll see, but I think bringing services to these areas. Services means connectivity, of course, transport, also post offices which are closed now, healthcare, kindergartens, but above all, digitals. If we bring broadband internet, Wi-Fi to each and every village, we can be sure that we can create new jobs.
And who will pay for this?
Listen now. Look at this. Look at this. Today, there are thousands of people who work from home. It's so-called teleworking. How could they start teleworking if there were no digitals? If you ask me this 10 days ago, I say, okay, but today I see what is the importance of digitals. So we have to have digitals all over Europe, I mean broadband internet all over in each and every village. Then you can create new jobs, you can work from home, you can telework. When you ask me who is going to pay, there are different funds within European Union, and if you have skillful politicians, which means mayors, regional presidents, governments, ministers, you can use this European money from different funding. There are different funds, but you have to be skillful enough to know how to use it. And what is the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is to have Luxembourg and Romania or Bulgaria, not to mention the country I know best, evenly developed. The ultimate goal is not to have GDP high here in Luxembourg and have poor people in other part of Europe. This is what we are aiming at. I mean, this can be ideal goal, but this is what we would like to have in the end. If we stay together, I hope we will, and I'm totally convinced that we have to stay together.
On demography, does somebody would like to make a comment or react to what the Vice President said? Maybe some who supported that question, which was a very good question. Nope. Okay. Then I propose we go to the next, which is also I'm really grateful, because I think these are really very good and interesting questions to discuss tonight. Reducing the voting age, 18 to 16. There was a referendum on this in Luxembourg. It was turned down. How do you think this could help make young people more interested in politics, and is this even possible to discuss this on an EU level?
Of course, it can be one topic. You can raise this topic in your young or youth agora, and you can raise this issue as an issue on the conference on the future of Europe. But what I think, it's, as you know, it's national law. You said you had a referendum. So it's up to electoral system of each and every member state. In Austria, you can vote with 16, in Croatia with 18. So it has nothing to do with European level. It's member states' competence. But I think it would be good to hear young people voices in the elections too.
Do you think this should be a topic then that should be discussed by politicians on an EU level, that young people want to be able to vote at a younger age?
Not but by politicians, but debated by citizens, but by young
Yes.
people. And then if it will be the common pattern of these proposals, then we will have to act accordingly and to ask member states to implement this. But still, it's member states' competence.
There's a question, the third row there, the young lady.
Thank you very much. Don't you believe that maybe at the age of 16, young people should have the option of voting, but not be, I don't want to say forced, but now when you're 18, you have to vote? Shouldn't the people at the age of 16 maybe only have the option to vote? Because when you see in general at 16, you can still be influenced a lot by your family, by your friends, and it's very difficult at a young age to have your own opinion, your own, well, political view of the world, of what's going on actually. So maybe 16 should more be like an option than maybe having to do it.
You know what? Everything voting, I don't know, is in Luxembourg.
In Luxembourg, voting is obligatory. So
obligatory.
it's yes.
This is what I didn't know. I know that it's obligatory in Belgium, in Luxembourg, but in many other member states it's voluntary. So it's always option. If you want to vote, you can vote. If not, and here you have to pay. You have to pay fine if you don't vote. This is a good idea, but I cannot comment more on this. Thank you for this idea.
We have one more question here, young man here in the second row.
Thank you. I'm from Mäerz, and about the thing with the if you can vote when you're 16, the problem is it has to be voted, as you stated, in a national vote. So the problem is the ones that are voting right now are only adults, and youngsters are not asked what they think about it. So how could you get the adults to let younger people vote if they know that we have a different perspective and opinion than them? So they don't want to have us as a competition in their votes, don't you believe?
You saw there was a Slido question. How do you participate in democratic processes? First, yeah, I'm a member of party. I'm voting. I'm going to the streets. So use your young power. Be influential and do it. It's the only answer I can give you. So nobody can solve the problem but you. So it's in your hands. So future is in your hands, as I told you.
We have one comment here, and then I come back to you.
Thank you. However, I think the most important thing would be to try to break the stigma the older generation would have about younger people, especially in the range from 16 to 18. And I believe that this conference shows that the young people are actually quite involved and they are actually making a move. However, older generations seem to be closing an eye on everything that we are doing and trying to keep on the stereotypes that we're not involved and that we don't care, when clearly that is not the truth. Don't you think that the European Union or that even policymakers could try to themselves make it a priority for youngsters to have a platform to show everything that they're doing, such as this, in order to break down the stereotypes? And I know that most work needs to come from us. However, we've been doing so much already, and there's not really anything that has changed for us, at least here in Luxembourg.
Now I'm sure that this will be one of the topics of the conference on the future of Europe. I'm sure, as I don't think that there is a stigma. I don't think, but once I think whoever is politician, most of politicians have their own kids. So how is it possible that they don't understand their own kids? So you have to be more influential. You have this is the only way. I cannot tell you more because, as I said, it's national. It's national. It's not European. It's not according to the treaty. Electoral law is within the competence of the member state, and it's up to you. and up to your authorities here.
But I think it's a really good point, because it's something that should be taken up in the discussions on the conference on the future of Europe. From what age should young people be, really ask their opinion and participate? And I can assure you, everything we do that's organized from the Commission representation that we do in this house as well, young people are more than welcome. We really try to reach out as much as possible, because we really enjoy discussing with you and hearing what you say. And then what we can do, what I can do, is report back also those opinions to my hierarchy in Brussels. This is what, young people, young people think. That's also, that doesn't really exist either, because you have very diverging opinions also probably amongst you here tonight. But thank you very much for your comments. I think we had one comment on this side.
I'm from Lëtzebuerg Schumann, and I wanted to say that this topic about voting age is... I don't have a concrete opinion about it, because on the one hand I agree, on the other hand I don't, because especially in Luxembourg, we have to go to school until we're 19 years old. And so the difference between 16 and 18 is not very big. We don't have so much more experience in our lives, and I can say it because when I was 16 and now I'm almost 18, I had the same opinion, actually. Just it's slightly changed. And also then if we do so, if we make the voting age from 16, then we should motivate the young people to inform themselves, because many people I know don't inform themselves. And I asked them, yeah, but when you will have to vote, because at 18 we have to vote, when you will have to vote, what will you do? And they say, but I just vote what my parents will vote. And it's
And how do you inform yourself? Where do you get information from?
I try to
personally.
I try to compare different sources, because I don't want to trust only one source. I compare different sources.
So I think in Luxembourg, school is obligatory until 16, and I would say between 16 or 14, 16, 18, there is a big difference. I have children your age. I see a big difference between 13, 14, and then 16, 17. But perhaps you would like to react to some of these comments.
No? Because I can completely understand.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Here.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that changing this age from 18 to 16 adds already a lot to a more democratic EU, but I think it's a step that is much more important, is that we really have to, that the youth, they have to understand what democracy means as its core, and they don't have to only know what it is, but they really have to experience it. And in most educational systems, we don't really get to experience what Europe is. And okay, in Luxembourg we have some project like MEPs, like youth parliament, like young parties. We have them, and they are there, but they are the people who are already concerned. They had an education by their parents that told them to inform themselves to do something. But there are very much people who don't get that education, very much young students who don't get that education, and also in the rural areas in other countries where those projects aren't as important and aren't as there that they are here in Luxembourg. So I think also we have to think of changing the education in all the countries to a more democratic education, that we really get to know what it means to live in a democracy. Because I think when we are 18, we are like a little bit pushed into democracy, and we had learned what it means, but not experienced it.
Thank you. Very smart, whatever you said. So democracy cannot be taken as granted, because there are some countries which, after 1990, you weren't born at that time, but half of Europe used to live in non-democratic systems, so you can understand what it means. So democracy cannot be taken for granted, and we have to make it always better and better, richer and richer. And I'm sure that part of education system could be also educating democracy. But at the same time, I mean, I think now I see how this conference could be interesting, and it could be efficient, because during the conference, during different events, you can take part and you can raise all your questions, and this could be then taken into account in the end, in 2 years' time, as I said, and then we will collect all these results. And what I liked from the mademoiselle who used to talk before, that you use different sources. This is very important, because, as I said, we praise all these new technologies and new media, but at the same time they could be misleading, and this is very important to consult different sources nowadays and to try to see what is true, what is fake, and it's not easy. I understand that you are nowadays faced with challenging times. It wasn't like that before, but of course it's better to live in modern digital age than to live in the age of newspapers. May I ask you one question now? All of you, who of you is reading newspapers? I cannot believe.
Online or paper?
Paper newspapers. Not online, but newspapers. So it's a good result. I never thought that people, young people nowadays read newspapers, paper newspapers. But you don't buy them in a coffee shop, or where do you read them? That's it. So that means free copy. Okay. Sorry, I was very amazed with the number of you, because otherwise, young people, only old people and pensioners, they read newspapers, and all others read only titles here. Okay.
But I think it was a very good comment you made more generally about the education system. I think this is really a topic that every citizen's dialogue we have with people of all ages, it is a topic that comes up every single time. Why don't we learn more about Europe? Why is there not a single European program across all schools in Europe? Of course, when we give the answer, well, education is a national competence, it's really unsatisfactory. But yes, it's the truth.
But we are pushing some funding. You have Horizon Europe, you have research programs. Maria Gabriel, my colleague, is in charge. So there are different programs which you can use for this democracy building, and I'm sure that. But your school teachers should be vigilant enough to somehow navigate you through these programs. This is what exists, but maybe it's not directly in official school curricula.
Yes, and I really encourage you, because I've participated sometimes in Model European Parliament. I know some of you also participating in Model United Nations. These are fantastic programs, really, and great ways for you also to learn how to engage and to see the complexity, because it's always easy to criticize something, but when you're sitting down and you're negotiating a resolution or an agreement on something, you see actually how complicated it is, and it's always easy to criticize, but it's more difficult to try to come to an agreement when you have 27 or more delegations that need to come to an agreement on something. I think there was a question over there. Yeah.
Thank you. My question is, what will happen if now, for example, if the coronavirus gets worse, are schools got to get shut down, or youth houses got to get shut down, or is it still going to continue? Because it is quite the question that I want to ask.
I have a colleague in European Commission who is Vice President Šefčovič in charge of foresight. So I don't have crystal ball at this moment. Nobody knows anything, and we are doing whatever we can from side of Commission. As I told you, we released, or I might have not told you, 7.5 billion euros for fight against this virus for European pharmaceutical companies in order to find the vaccine, in order to help with this equipment, in order to help some member states which are, as you know, for example, Italy, and we don't know what will happen with other member states. So we are doing our utmost from the side of Commission, but nobody knows what will happen. Nobody knows when vaccine will be discovered or invented, but we are investing our money in research and all this. So it's unprecedented event. I must tell you. I wouldn't have never dreamed that that this could happen in 21st century and that we cannot control this. But it is here among us. I hope not. No one is coughing. No one is sneezing here. I hope we are corona free tonight.
We have in the fourth row.
Just going back to the issue about educating ourselves and about the voting age, one of the things I'd like to mention is the fact that we are trying to educate ourselves. I think the turnouts for the Fridays for Future events all around the world and the turnouts here tonight show that we really, even despite maybe discrepancies in some school systems, in educating their students about politics and about what is going on in the EU, we're actively taking part in things outside of school to try to understand what the world needs. And also, I think one of the things we need to look at is the Brexit situation and how polls showed that the older population was more in favor of the exit and the younger population was more in favor of staying. And I think for us as students, it has a huge impact on us that the UK is no longer a part of the EU. So I think this shows the really big need for youth involvement in politics and maybe a need for changing the voting age to a younger age, like 16, because these issues will impact us as well. And I think that needs to be represented.
You are right. All these issues will impact you, more you than us, you know, and this is very important. And mentioning Brexit results, it is true that young people voted in favor of Remain and older not. And what is also very important is the turnout in last year's elections. There was a huge number, I cannot now tell you the percentages, of young people who participated in European elections, which means that you want to create your future. And this is the reason why we are launching this exercise, in order to listen to you and to see what are your ideas and how can we better develop our future. So thank you for these questions. You mentioned the Friday, how do you call it?
Fridays for Future.
So Fridays for Future. So in Sweden, they cannot vote. They can vote with 18. And Greta being, I don't know, 13, 14, now 17, she has not power of vote, but she has power, you see. So it's not the only power voting. There are different energies among us. Okay, I can understand what you're saying.
Thank you. Those are some very important topics. You mentioned Fridays for Future, so we put up another question that if you want, you can answer to. What is your favorite catchphrase for Fridays for Future? Let's give it a couple more seconds.
But only one answer. No. I was trying to answer.
Yeah, I think you can only answer one. So you have to decide. Very serious audience. Very good. So there is no planet B. I think Vice President, one of the really important things of this Commission initiatives that's really horizontal, vertical, that goes into every field of what we want to do in the next 5 years is the European Green Deal. I think it's a topic that has really been brought to the forefront. We all know it's important, but also with the help of young people who have, like we said in the beginning, gone to the streets also for this. I think not only not to go to school, but also because you believe that this is very important for your future. So the Commission has taken this up. Vice President, would you like to say a few words about that? There's no Planet B.
I'm really happy to see that there is no Planet B, is the major majority of you replied, because there is no Planet B, and the future Fridays for Future is very important event. That means that you are aware of what's going on, and the young people, as I said, have power, at the same time have vision, so they know that there is climate change. Although some very important politicians in this world don't want to recognize that there is a climate change, which I cannot believe that it's true, but it is true. So we have to take care about our planet, and our Commission has this as our first priority. European Green Deal is the first priority of this Commission, and we launched this Green Deal, and now our first act was climate law last week. So and the young Greta was present at the college meeting. She wasn't happy. She wants us to be more ambitious, but it's not easy. There are procedures, and I understand that you would like to change the world in one night, but it's not possible. So there are procedures, and we have to follow the procedures. But our ambitions are very high. 2050 to have to be the first climate neutral continent. So I think it's a very, very high ambition, and I hope we will fulfill it. So I'm really happy that you are, as young people, aware of this challenge, and this is, I think, really priority number one.
Do we have anybody else with a boiling question or comment there?
Thank you. Well, I'd like to take it back to the voices we take into account, which we've just discussed before, so that young people should get a voice. My question is, however, rather related to how do you then actually take them into account? And I'm referring to European Citizens Initiative, where we have the tool that citizens' voice can be heard, but at the end of the day, this tool is simply not mandatory. It's not obligatory for the Commission to follow with an initiative. And I'm wondering whether the Commission will discuss that in the future of Europe as well.
Are you aiming at specific European Citizens Initiative or just
the tool in general? Because by now the Commission is not forced to act on upon the initiative, so it's just an invitation.
Yeah, but I think this is very important democratic tool. European Citizens Initiative having million of signatures now also online, which is much easier to do than it used to be before. And I think this can be used as pressure to those who. I mean, you say that it's only consultative tool, but still, I think it is very important. And why don't use it more?
If I may follow up on that?
Yes.
Well, I of course see that it's a pressure tool, but I'm wondering, wouldn't it be also possible to make it mandatory for the Commission to submit a legislative proposal or to submit a proposal to Parliament and Council, so they could then rule it down rather than the Commission already? Because I see if we have 1 million citizens who support something, isn't that a sign that something is really important?
Now I see there is another topic for conference on the future Europe. so empowering European Citizens Initiative. Okay, I cannot answer more. Okay.
But I think let's not forget, for example, on some citizens' initiatives have actually had very concrete results. For example, on water, quality of water, which is also extremely important for every single one of us. It was a result of a citizens' initiative that a next proposal was made, and where I think very recently actually a new legislative piece was adopted. So there's very concrete results that affect every single one of us. That are a result of a citizens' initiative. So, and there might be things that are also supported by many people that might not necessarily make sense. So we need some kind of a control also. But I think the fact that you raised this, and I think there was also a question that was supported along those lines, it's something that can also be taken up. So I think very slowly we will be now concluding this. Well, I enjoyed very much. I hope, Vice President, you had a nice mix of young people in terms of ages and in terms of nationalities here. I think perhaps you can tell us what you can take away from some of the ideas that were discussed today, because some were very concrete and you can take with you back to Brussels. And of course you are discussing the future of Europe and the conference on the future of Europe, not only in Brussels, but like you said, in many different cities and countries in the EU. Tell us your takeaways.
Okay, if I have to make conclusions out of this debate, I will have three. One is voting age, 16 to 18. Another one will be Planet B, which means European Green Deal. And the third one can go around citizens' initiative, although, as you said, right to water was implemented, but maybe we can empower this. So I'm really surprised, but positively surprised, how interested you are in not only in national but in European politics, how interested you are in your own future, and how would you like to contribute to this. So I think this was only one trial a small conference, because, as I said, the benchmark of the conference would be a feedback mechanism. At this moment, I cannot act accordingly, but I'm sure that after we launch it on 9th of May and during the course of the conference, during the course of these 2 years, there will be milestones where we can stop and say what we reached until now and how we can continue. So it won't be process start on 9th of May and then finished in 2 years' time on 9th of May 2022. No, we think we have to have milestones in between and see how to proceed. So I really thank you for this very, very good input to me, and I will refer to Commission and to other important legislators. Of course, European Parliament is also very important. You have to take this into considerations. It becomes more and more important, and it is very important to have MEPs also in such citizens' dialogues. They might be even more. They might be even more, since once you are a member of European Parliament, you represent citizens, it's much easier to talk on behalf of yourself than to talk on behalf of Commission, because I'm now talking on behalf of Commission as a body, but still I'm trying to grasp what are your ideas and what are your concerns, and I'll try to translate them into concrete proposals. So thank you once again, and looking forward to see you once again.
So I want to thank you, Vice President, really for being here and for engaging with the young citizens. I want to thank all of you for being here today, for being very constructive, critical, and I think that's extremely important, being constructive and critical. There's, of course, many topics that we could not discuss now in the 1.5 hours. We are very aware of that. We cannot save the world nor Europe tonight. I do invite you to follow the representation and the Commission on social media. We try to be very active in terms of engagement, in terms of informing citizens of all ages. So please follow us. And also, when we do organize events, we are extremely happy when young people join us, because that gives us the positive and necessary energy really to continue to build Europe together with you. Thank you so much, and I invite you to have a drink and a snack together with us. Thank you.